It happened in broad daylight, inside the marble-floored lobby of Aldridge Tech, a billion-dollar company known for its ruthless perfectionism and glass ceilings that shone brighter than its morals. The janitor everyone ignored, the man with faded boots and a mop that squeaked across polished floors, became a storm no one expected. 4 men twice his size had surrounded him, one of them pushing a young intern to the ground, laughing. The janitor, a quiet single dad named Marcus Hale, didn't shout or threaten. He simply raised the mop in his hand, steady, calm, and in less than a minute, the entire building froze as he took down all 4 with swift, shocking precision. It wasn't chaos. It was controlled power, like a man who'd seen war and lost too much already. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and strength that comes from the heart, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Let's spread stories that remind the world what true courage looks like. Marcus had started working at Aldridge Tech 6 months ago, just after his life had completely fallen apart. Once a decorated military officer, he'd left service to care for his daughter Maya after his wife passed away from cancer. They lost everything: home, savings, stability. The military pension barely covered the treatments, and when she was gone, all that was left was a promise he'd whispered at her bedside. "I'll raise her right. I'll protect her always." But the world doesn't stop for broken promises or broken men. He took the first job that came his way, janitor at a corporate tower that gleamed like it was allergic to people like him. Every morning, Marcus arrived at sunrise. His uniform smelled faintly of bleach, and his hands were calloused from both the mop and the past. He kept to himself, polite to everyone, invisible to most. The executives didn't notice him, and the interns barely remembered his name. Only one person did: Lina Whitford, the young woman in HR who always greeted him with a soft smile. She had noticed the way he always checked the floor before mopping, careful not to make anyone slip, and the way he brought his daughter lunch in brown paper bags filled with homemade sandwiches. Maya was 7, bright-eyed, and far too grown for her age. Every afternoon after school, she waited in a small corner of the maintenance room, coloring while her dad worked. It wasn't the life Marcus wanted for her, but it was what he could give. And every night, as they walked home together through the golden glow of the city's streetlights, she would hold his rough hand and say, "Daddy, one day I'll buy you a building to clean." He'd laugh softly, even though deep down, he prayed she'd never have to understand the weight behind those words. But Aldridge Tech wasn't a kind place. The management was strict, the culture cold. The CEO, Adriana Kane, was a woman known for her composure and precision. She was the kind of leader who could turn an entire room silent with one look. Under her rule, productivity was everything, empathy, a luxury. Yet behind her polished demeanor was a loneliness even she couldn't admit. Her company was her life, her fortress against the past that had once nearly destroyed her. The incident began on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. The sun streamed through the lobby's glass facade, catching on the gold lettering of the company name. Marcus was mopping near the elevators, lost in thought about whether he could afford a small cake for Maya's birthday next week. That's when he heard the commotion. A group of 4 contractors laughing crudely near the reception desk. One of them, big and red-faced, had cornered a trembling intern named Noelle, mocking her accent and snatching her notebook from her hands. Marcus glanced up, his grip tightening on the mop handle. He'd seen this kind of scene before, in the service, in life, in places where power made people forget decency. He walked forward, quiet but certain. "Let her go," he said, voice steady but low. The men turned, sneering. "Stay out of it, janitor." One spat. The lobby fell into an uneasy hush as employees watched from the mezzanine above. Noel looked at him with pleading eyes. Marcus sighed softly, eyes lowering for just a second, as if saying a silent prayer. Then in one swift movement, he swung the mop in a clean arc, catching the first man's leg and sending him sprawling. The second lunged. Marcus sidestepped, using the mop's handle to knock the breath out of his chest. The third came from behind. Marcus spun, striking his wrist with surgical precision. The last tried to rush him, only to find himself face first on the marble, the mop pressing lightly against his shoulder in silent warning. Gasps echoed through the lobby. Phones were raised. Security came running, and from the glass elevator, descending floor by floor, CEO Adriana Kane watched the entire scene unfold, her eyes widening, not in anger but in disbelief. When she stepped into the lobby, the men were being escorted out, groaning. Marcus stood there, chest heaving, eyes downcast as if embarrassed by his own strength. "What's your name?" she asked, voice sharp with authority but trembling underneath. "Marcus Hale, ma'am," he said quietly. She studied him for a moment, something familiar stirring in her eyes. "You're suspended," she finally said. The words hit the air like frost. That night, Marcus packed his things in silence while Maya waited outside the janitor's closet, coloring as usual. When he emerged, she looked up. "We're going home early?" she asked. He nodded with a forced smile. "Yeah, baby." Early night. She held his hand tighter than usual as they walked through the quiet streets. The next morning, a black car pulled up outside their tiny apartment. Adriana Kane stepped out herself. She'd spent all night reviewing the footage and his file. What she found made her chest tighten. Marcus Hale wasn't just any janitor. He was a former captain in a rescue battalion, honored for bravery, discharged after a classified mission that saved dozens of civilians overseas. The kind of man who disappeared quietly after giving everything. When Marcus opened the door, confusion crossed his face. "Mum," he said, standing straight, almost instinctively at attention. Adriana hesitated before speaking. "I came to apologize," she said softly, "and to ask why you didn't tell anyone who you were." He shook his head. "Doesn't matter who I was. What matters is my daughter eats and sleeps safely. Titles don't buy that." She glanced inside, noticing Maya asleep on the couch with a sketchbook in her lap, a drawing of her dad holding a mop like a superhero. Something shifted in Adriana's expression. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of her success pressed down in a different way, not guilt but awareness. "Mr. Hale," she said after a pause, "come back to work, not as a janitor, as director of safety." Marcus stared, stunned. "I'm not looking for pity," he said firmly. "This isn't pity," she replied. "It's respect. You protected my people when others didn't even notice. I need men like you leading, not mopping floors." When Marcus returned to Aldridge Tech, the entire building buzzed with whispers. The janitor was now walking through the same halls in a pressed shirt with a new badge clipped to his chest. But he didn't change much. He still greeted the cleaning staff by name. He still brought Maya lunch. He even polished the lobby floors himself once a week, saying, "Keeps me humble." Months passed, and the company slowly began to feel different. Adriana implemented wellness programs, leadership training, and security ethics inspired by Marcus's quiet influence. Noel, the intern he defended, became his assistant. She often told new hires, "He's the reason this place feels human again." One sunny afternoon, Adriana stood by the window of her top-floor office, watching Marcus laugh with his daughter in the courtyard below. Maya was showing him her latest drawing. This time of a man holding a mop that shimmered like gold, standing in front of a tall glass building. Adriana felt a lump in her throat. Her assistant entered quietly. "Mom, the board is waiting," she said. Adriana nodded but didn't move. "You know," she murmured, "some people clean floors, others clean hearts." The story of Marcus Hale spread quietly through the city. First whispered, then shared online, until people across the world watched the lobby footage in awe. They saw not a fight, but a man defending what was right. A father who refused to let darkness take root. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your engagement helps us keep telling stories of hope, courage, and redemption, the kind that remind us that true power doesn't come from status but from spirit. And before you go, comment below. Do you believe in giving second chances to those the world has forgotten? Because sometimes, the greatest heroes aren't the ones in uniforms or boardrooms. They're the ones pushing a mop, raising a child, and choosing kindness when no one's watching.